Boston has entered the chat. Thanks for joining the show. Thanks for listening and watching, wherever you're joining us from. I'm George Balekji in the PNC Bank studio. She's Natalie Noury. We have a packed show for you guys today. Simone Biles, yes, the GOAT. Simone Biles stops by, chats for a few minutes, plugging the Gold Over America tour, but also talking about her Paris experience, her battles with mental health, and also everything she's doing now that she has her third Olympic Games behind her. We'll have that interview later in the show. Also, Nick Whalen talking fantasy football, stardom, sit-ems, what quarterbacks to roll with, and what to do at tight end as well. And Natalie Noury and I, we're going to break down Pats and the 49ers for this Sunday and talk a little Shohei baseball and how much that one's going for. First things first, Natalie, how are we doing today?
I'm good, George. I'm coming to you a couple hours north today, but nice to join you remotely. Just things are going well and excited. First weekend of Hockey East starting this weekend. So my social life is gone until April, but I'm excited for it.
Yeah, it went from non-existent this summer because of baseball to non-existent until April because of hockey. I know the grind. That's why I appreciate you hopping in, making the time. Natalie Noury, one of the busiest people in New England. Natalie, I'm excited. I mean, for this Simone Biles interview, this was something that was fun where get an email late Tuesday night. Hey, Simone Biles has 10 minutes between 5 and 5:50. Can you make it work? And I was just like, you do not say no to Simone Biles. You don't say no to the GOAT. This was a very cool experience for me. I was blown away by just having the opportunity to talk to her.
I have to ask, George, were you like nervous at all heading into this one? Maybe not nervous, but like talking to someone so high profile.
No, I was nervous.
What were you feeling?
I don't care. I'll admit it. I was anxious. I was nervous. I was feeling all of it. Like what question? I like blanked out. Like what questions do I ask her? And then, you take 5 seconds, you take a deep breath. You're like, okay, she's competed in 3 Olympic Games. She won gold in 2 separate, the one in 2016 and just recent in Paris. Just take a step back. And she was so easy to talk to. Like once she hopped on, it was, she's there. And I said, hey, Simone, how you doing? She's like, hi, I'm good. Thanks for making the time. I was like, all right, iconic athletes, GOATs, they're just like us. But she is like really grounded. So the nerves were going, but it's one of those, you know how it goes. You get the assignment and you have that outcome-based anxiety. For what I like to do is channel it to like execution-based anxiety of like, what's question 1? What's question 2? What's question 3? Instead of this has to be a good interview and I'm not thinking about the questions,
Yeah, step-by-step basis. And it was really cool because like, I was scrolling on Instagram and I saw one of our coworkers might have like leaked a little bit of a story with you in the studio with Simone Biles. And I texted you right away. I was like, Simone Biles, George, is this real? And you were like, how did you know? But I'm so excited to hear what she had to say. I'm pumped for you for this opportunity too. How cool.
Thank you. Yeah, let's check it out right now. Enough talking, hearing me and Natalie gab on about it. Here's my interview with Simone Biles as she's talking about her Gold Over America tour, experiences in Paris and more. Check it out right here. She's Simone Biles, doesn't really need an intro, but the GOAT of U.S. gymnastics, most decorated U.S. gymnast in Team USA Olympic history. Simone, thanks for taking the time. It's an honor. How are you doing today?
Of course. Thank you guys so much. I'm so happy and blessed to be able to speak with you, and I'm doing good. We're at our 7th tour stop currently right now. We have lots more to come, so yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, I can't wait to get into the Gold Over America tour talk. We'll get into that, but I want to start with, have you reflected on, and has it hit you, what you accomplished in Paris to come back for a 3rd Olympic Games, get gold multiple times again, and then once again, just leave your imprint on the sport and the Olympics overall?
Yes, most definitely. So after the Olympics, I actually got to go home to Chicago with my husband, and I spent a week there to just rest, relax, and recharge. And I was thinking about the accomplishments in Paris, and I'm so grateful and blessed to be able to have an amazing body that's healthy enough to compete and still just represent the United States. And it's bittersweet because I never thought I'd be back competing at an Olympic Games, but everything that I've gone through and the story that I get to share with the audience and with the fans, not just on an Olympic stage, but on our touring stage as well, is truly a blessing. So I'm excited that we have the Gold Over America tour to just share our stories, have representation, and so that the kids can really resonate with us, not just as the huge athletes they see on the TV, but really up close and personal. And I think that's what's so special about our show is we really get to be super close with them, cheer with them, have fun, say hi, wave, and interact. And so that every fan feels seen and heard.
Yeah, what is that experience like when you're at the Olympics? I know hyper-focused on the task at hand and all the competition, but the Gold Over America Tour, taking you to all these cities all across the country, and it's big that it puts gymnastics on a stage like we've never seen before. It's gymnastics meets a concert, but as you pointed out, the fan interaction is so important as well.
Yes, 100%, because they've supported us on our careers for so long. So it's such a blessing that we're able to put on a show like this to give back, even if it's just a little bit of inspiration and waving to them. And just so that, again, they feel seen and heard. But it really is so exciting because whenever we're at the Olympics, we're really, really stressed. We have a job to do. But here, it's all fun. That's all we're here to do, is to have fun, inspire the next generation, tell our stories, and hopefully leave everyone with a piece of gold.
When you look back from starting out being on the world stage at 19 back in Rio to Tokyo and then to Paris, how did each game challenge you in a different way?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, I would say Rio, I was so naive about what was going on and what was happening. And I think we were so mentally programmed that we knew what would happen if we won gold. So we kind of just went out there, did our job, a little bit robotic. And then Tokyo, obviously, the circumstances were a little different because of COVID. So we tried to push the best we could without that fan interaction that we have, that sometimes we feed off the crowd to have better performances, as well as not having family and friends in the crowd to support us. So I would say that was a little bit mentally exhausting more because everyone was going through things and we still had to go out there and put on a show on an Olympic stage. And then Paris again was kind of like, let's bring fun back into the sport. Let's support one another. Tokyo wasn't the best, but we're all going to go out here, redeem ourselves, and show everybody what we're capable of and what we're made of. And I think we did just that. So that was so much success and followed by so much celebration. And that's also why we do the Gold Over America Tour too, is to celebrate our success that we had in Paris.
And how gratifying was it to return to Paris, get 3 gold medals, be back on that stage at full competition after everything you went through in Tokyo, not just in the competition, but also something you've been so brave and open about, but going through your battles with your mental health as a competitor?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it was truly a blessing in disguise because if what didn't happen in Tokyo, I truly don't believe I'd be in a mentally stable position. And I also believe I wouldn't be able to get on my social media platforms and share my story with people and resonate with them and encourage them to get the help that they deserve. And so I'm really blessed and grateful that that played out that way, and grateful that I got to share my story and be raw, vulnerable, and open and honest, because I've always wanted to do that with my fan base and for them to see me as human rather than just Simone Biles. And I think they saw just that. And yeah, it was really nice.
Yeah, I think, something to be grateful of is that you're an open book about it, because we forget in Rio, you were just 19 and you didn't just compete, but you dominated. The pressure that can come with that, the stardom that comes with it as well, is a lot for someone at your age to handle. And to still return and compete in Tokyo, and then again in Paris to be at such a high level. You pointed out, it's true. We see these Olympians, we see these high-level athletes, and we forget that if you're not wearing a brace or have your wrist wrapped, that mental health is something very serious. It's something that never goes away, so you still overcome it every day. What has it been like once you took that leap? Once you opened up about it, the aftermath, I would say, of hearing the feedback from fans, maybe people that don't follow gymnastics but are going through their mental health struggles as well.
Yeah, the outpouring love and support that I received was truly mind-boggling, because I didn't realize how many people were silently suffering like myself. So to be able to share my story was, I feel like, very eye-opening, but I also feel like I would go to the mall or to the grocery store, or I would be, say, at a dealership, wherever I am. People would come up to me and thank me for what I've done, because they realize, like, you know what, I need to go get the help that I deserve. And I started therapy because of you. So thank you so much for sharing your story. It has changed my life. And although therapy is very tough, I'm so grateful that I have these resources to use and knowledge to gain from that so I can better help myself. So I think it's just such a blessing, but also everybody's mental health journey is different and unique in their own ways. And I think I got so caught up in it because in gymnastics, if you do have an injury, the doctor tells you 6 to 8 weeks and you'll be fine. Or if you get surgery, 3 to 4 months. But with mental health, that wasn't the case. So I'm thinking, it's been 6 weeks. Why am I not healed yet? Da 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 da. Like I've been taking medicine. I've tried so many things, but I honestly believe I'll be on this mental health journey for the rest of my life. And I'm so grateful again that I have these resources to be able to use and apply now.
Yeah, it's certainly something. It never goes away. And for, people that seek help, therapy is an important, step, having that support staff around them. So always thank you to you as someone that's broken down that stigma, that, speaks out and puts it on a platform that is so crucial and so valuable for people that go through it every day. I've spoken about it multiple times. I brought up Rio, Tokyo, Paris. You're now 27 and everyone's going, well, what's Simone Biles up to next? Is it weird that you're just 27 and people keep asking you about retirement?
Well, no, because in gymnastics, the longevity has never, ever been there. And I think these past 5 to 6 years, we're truly pushing that past our boundaries with the proper training and recovery. So I do think that it's not unnatural for people to be asking about retirement because this isn't normal what we're doing. But it is funny because now we're like, no, I could go for 8 more years, whatever that may be. So it's truly a blessing. But yeah, it is funny because as soon as you finish the Olympics, they're like, what's next? And I'm like, damn, I can't even relish in this moment and be so grateful for the opportunity to compete on a world stage again at an Olympic Games and just to celebrate my success. You guys just want to know what's next, which I truly don't believe is fair because we've been working our whole lives for this moment and you guys don't even give us 10 minutes after. So I think that's actually kind of hilarious because we're celebrating this as much as possible. And then everybody's like, what's next? But I also know that's so normal in life. As soon as you get a boyfriend, when are you getting married? As soon as you get married, when are you having babies? All of that stuff. So everyone just wants to know what's next to be the first to report it. So right now it's working on my mental and physical health before I make any commitments. Because again, for gymnastics, it's not like we have an off season. As soon as we start training, we're in for the long haul for those 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, we know what's next right now is this Gold Over America tour.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask what's next, but I know LA in 2028, home turf is very enticing. But last one I'll end with, Simone. I mean, how much joy does this bring to you? The Gold Over America tour, which will be in Boston October 6th. And they added a date in Boston for you guys. So many tickets are going October 6th and 7th at TD Garden. How much joy does this bring to you?
I mean, for us, it's sharing the love and the passion we have for the sport with our audience. So obviously we love the sport a huge amount and we're just happy that we get to share that with the rest of the world.
Simone, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. The GOAT of gymnastics will be here in Boston October 6th and 7th, the Gold Over America Tour. Simone, thanks for taking the time. Appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
That was cool. She's awesome.
That was so cool. It was cool seeing her on the screen too. I felt like I was chatting with her myself, but no, really cool to hear that and the vulnerability that she's allowed herself to feel in such a spotlight. And I thought something that stood out to me was, in gymnastics, when you get injured, you get 6 to 8 weeks recovery, whatever. You have that measurable, that tangible timeline for your recovery, but mental health doesn't work on any kind of clock. And I think that was a really good point for her to bring up. And I don't know, kind of resonated with me because and everything, healing journeys are different timelines, lengths for everybody. So that was cool to hear her say that.
Yeah, I like to hear her point that out too. If it's an ACL, I mean, she was dealing with a bad ankle this past Paris Games. Other gymnasts like a Fred Richard was dealing with a bad Achilles and he pushed through it. You get that, hey, we're going to work on this 2 hours after, 2 hours before. It's going to help the process and we can fight through it. Mental health is something different. And I can't imagine the pressure that comes with going to Rio at 19 years old. And it's your first experience. You're like, I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to reach a pinnacle. Winning 4 gold medals where she goes from just an unknown, known in the gymnastics world to the face of Team USA, like in a matter of a couple months. Again, at just 19. And the standard that you have to uphold, what people expect of you in the public eye and everything, like, and the standard that they expect you to be on the mat as well. Like that pressure, that anxiety is so hard to deal with. And for her to bounce back from Japan, like return to action at one point as she battled the twisties and all her mental health issues, and then to come back in Paris and have 3 more gold, like for that span, at that age, that gap, it's unheard of. That's why it's so important that she's so open about it. And I commend her for it too. She doesn't have to be, you know. That was one thing where I was thinking like, you know, I want to ask her about it. I'm a big proponent on mental health. I know how important therapy is for me. It helps me a ton. And I know how difficult it can be for people just to take that step of, I'm going to get a therapist. I'm going to look it up. I do everything virtual. Like it's really easy. I make it work with my day to day. I make it work with my work as well, which Natalie, someone like you and I, how busy we are, that can be difficult. For her to speak about it, though, if it just gets that one other person to go, oh, let me try and get a therapist. Let me look into getting a therapist. Because I think that's one of the hardest things is finding a therapist that you like. It's like dating. Like it literally is like, okay, I got to give it 3 tries. If by the 3rd time I don't like it, I got to start again. It's difficult, but when it clicks and when you get someone that resonates with you and helps you, mental health is health. I don't stop going to the gym just because I lost a certain amount of weight. I keep going because it makes me feel good. I don't stop going to therapy just because I feel better with my anxiety or depression. I keep going because it feels good and it helps me, you know?
Yeah, and I think like to your point there, like working out for me, going outdoors is kind of therapeutic in a way, like hiking, just going for a walk, whatever. I don't have a therapist, but I know there's a lot of people in my circle who are now kind of exploring that realm because they realize how important it is, how accessible it is, and how it can be life-changing. And I think you mentioned not only is it hard to find someone that works for you, but it's hard to admit when you need help. And I think someone like Simone Biles to really kind of use her platform to go out there and make herself seem human rather than Simone Biles. As she said, she's like, people are coming up to me at the grocery stores or wherever I am saying, thank you. And I have sought out help because of what you've done. And in some cases, as a celebrity, someone who's in a spotlight, I think that's one of the more powerful ways that you can use your platform to help people and make them realize that they're not alone, that someone they look up to does it. It's so much easier to do something when someone else does it with you, right? So that's what this whole thing is about to me. And I think she's just a beautiful person inside and out. And it's a powerful message. And I don't think we can talk about mental health enough in this world, especially with all this technology too. It makes it so hard. Social media. Yep. But following people who are vulnerable and expose themselves to having those struggles, I think it's relatable, it's relevant, and it's just really cool to hear her talk about it. And your conversation with her was great.
Yeah, there's this invisible armor we put on athletes, and it makes sense. I mean, they're put on a pedestal. They're some of the toughest people in the world, but then you realize like they go through the same things we do. We go through the same things they do. It puts it on such a human level. That's why it's so important what she's doing. Again, check her out. It'll be Simone Biles, Jordan Childs, Fred Richard. I mean, the names go on and on and on. They'll be at the TD Garden in Boston, October 6th and 7th. Go online, just Google Gold Over America Tour TD Garden. You'll see where you could get tickets. They added that Monday night too, 7:30 at the Garden. So many tickets sold out on the 6th. They had to add a night. Natalie, let's get into it. One more look at Patriots and the 49ers. Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, both out. We know CMC is going to Germany to get something done for his Achilles. We'll see. What caught my eye, Vidarian Lowe, the starting left tackle, last week, a DNP in practice, the last report we saw. Michael Jordan, a DNP. Anthony Jennings, one of their best run-stopping linebackers. That's not good against a Kyle Shanahan offense. He's a DNP as well. They could get City So back into the fold. It could be Demontre Jacobs at left tackle. I know I bore people, Natalie, with this left tackle talk, but there's so much that success can start and stop with their offensive line. It's tough for me to find a way for the Patriots to upset the 49ers. To me, this is more of a game where we can gauge where the Patriots are at. If they respond after getting embarrassed against the Jets, what is Gerard Mayo's standard? Being competitive, improving game to game. Can they get back to that Seattle level? Can they be competitive? Can they keep this tight against a banged up 49ers team and also a 49ers team that's still trying to figure out their defense? That's what I'm watching for. People are hoping for an upset. I don't see it happening. This is a rebuild year for the Pats. I'm just looking for them to find some improvement from Thursday night.
And I think, Patriots as well as the 49ers are coming off of week 3 losses that neither one of them are happy with.
Yeah.
But I think in this case, George, if there was a time for this Patriots team to beat the 49ers, it would be this week, because I think, like, when you look at all the injuries that the 49ers are dealing with right now, you also have Brock Purdy playing day-to-day with back soreness. You had George Kittle, who just started practicing again. If those two are back, I think the Patriots are, for lack of better terms, kind of screwed. But, you know, with everything else they're missing, you look at, okay, I'm thinking of many things at once, but Gerard Mayo said the key to success this week is making sure the defensive line and the offensive line are as sharp as they possibly can be. But if you look at the one advantage that the Patriots might have over the 49ers this week, it might be through the run game. We know that their pass game is not great. They're averaging 102 yards, I think, per game. And then Kyle Shanahan addressed the media saying, you know, there were a couple times in the 3 games that we played so far this season where the pass has gotten past our defense, but we know that the Patriots are not very strong in that realm right now, so they have to look to the run game entering this week. Also, just to mention here, you know, Javon Hargrave with the defensive line for the 49ers, he's out. And that's a big gap for them, because they went from 4 strong starters to 3, and they're a little bit vulnerable, more so than they would normally be. So, I mean, what do you think about the run game for the Patriots this week, George?
I mean, it is a weak point of this Niners defense. They have a good pass rush. We haven't seen a lot of pressures created. They lose Javon Hargrave, who's their best interior defensive lineman. So, and it's just important because that's the only thing they do well. Like, they don't get separation from the receivers. They don't pass the ball well. They don't pass block. There's so many pressures and QB hits. If you're good at running the ball, like, the only way to beat the 49ers is lean on your strengths. Don't be anyone you're not. You're not talented enough. So that's what I give them the upside. It works out in a matchup perspective. It's just a matter of, and he talks about the D-line and O-line. It's all about winning at the line of scrimmage. This defense needs to get stops, because all of a sudden, if this game, it could start out tight, but then if it becomes a 2-score, 3-score difference, the Pats have to throw the ball, because they can't just do the white flag, run the ball, punt, and get out of there. It's just a reflection on how weak this roster is. But I agree with you. It's about the run game. It's going to be about the run game all year long. And it's getting Ramondre Stevenson and Antonio Gibson, keeping them in the game and getting between the two of them around 30 carries plus and around 120, 130 yards on the ground. That's the only recipe success they have. That's one thing that gives them a chance, because they have to set up the play action for the passing game. Everything for them relies on the run game, Natalie. So I agree with you pointing that out all the way. Like, that's the only way they have a shot. It's just going to be really hard at San Francisco. And as you mentioned it, them coming off blowing a 2-score lead against the Rams, they're back at home now. Like, they're pissed off. I know the Pats are pissed off, but you're catching a really good San Fran team. Still out with something to prove, so we'll see how that goes. Talking about Pats, talking about 49ers, we'll now toss it to our interview with Nick Whalen of RotoWire. He gave us some stardom sit-ems and some quarterbacks and tight ends to watch on fantasy football. Check it out. He's Nick Whalen, senior analyst for RotoWire. Also catch him hosting SiriusXM's fantasy football show. Nick, appreciate hopping back on the show. How we doing, my man?
Doing great, guys. Always good to be back on with you guys. It's been a chaotic NFL season, I think, so far. Underdogs continue to rule the day every single week. We'll see if that reverses this time around, but looking forward to talking some week 4.
Exactly. I'm excited to get into it. We like to always start with who your starts are for the week. And I know, obviously, they have the studs, your early round picks, who you're going to go with. Yep. But what are some guys people may be between on and maybe having on their bench right now where you're saying, no, because of this matchup and because of the volume, whatever it may be, you should put them into your lineup?
Yeah, I did not come here to tell you, make sure you get Saquon Barkley in your lineup this week against Tampa Bay. We'll try to dig a little bit deeper, some guys who might be on the borderline. And I'll start with a quarterback here, guys. I'm pretty comfortable rolling Justin Fields out, even in a 1-quarterback league. Obviously, in Superflex, he's going to be in there, but I think he's in a really good spot this week against the Indianapolis Colts. Steelers do have to go on the road, but I have not been impressed with this Indianapolis Colts team offensively or defensively. I don't think this is a good defense. I think that defense looked a little better last week because they happen to be playing the Chicago Bears, who are the second worst running team in the NFL, ahead of only the Raiders. That's not going to be the case for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, this Indy defense cannot get off the field. They've given up a ton of big plays this season. They just let Caleb Williams throw for, 350 yards, something he had not come close to through the first 2 weeks of the season. They got gashed by Malik Willis in that Packers running game in week 2. I think this is a really good spot for Justin Fields to get after the Colts, both with his arm and his legs. I mean, this Colts team, they're dead last in terms of time of possession. They're not converting third downs. They've turned it over more than any team in the NFL so far this season. So I think this is a good spot for Fields. I would start him over someone like Jared Goff. I'd consider starting him over Brock Purdy. And I think I'd start him over Anthony Richardson at this point, guys, on the other side of this matchup.
Yeah, I like that call, especially Anthony Richardson going against his dominant defense. And as bad as Will Levis interceptions have looked throughout the year, Nick, Anthony Richardson has 3 touchdowns to 6 interceptions, and he's coming off a performance going 10 for 20 on pass attempts and completions. What about any receivers or running backs you're looking at should be a start this week?
Yeah, I'll run through a few here quickly. I'm very comfortable starting Juwan Jennings again. That one almost goes without saying at this point. I mean, he really looked like the dominant receiver for the Niners over Brandon Ayuk last week against the Rams, which was pretty surprising. We're still kind of waiting for Brandon Ayuk to wake up, but I don't think Deebo Samuel's going to be out there. Obviously, no McCaffrey this week. We'll see on George Kittle. If he ends up playing, I think Jennings becomes a little bit less appealing, but should be a pretty gettable spot here for the 49ers going up at home against the New England Patriots. Another receiver I like, Rome Odunze. The Bears, like I said, cannot run the ball whatsoever. We know that. They know that. They say they're going to turn things over perhaps to Roschon Johnson more this week. I don't know how much that's going to matter. Either way, they have another good matchup, though, against another bad defense in the LA Rams. They are 31st in defensive DVOA on the year. I don't think the plan for the Bears is for Caleb Williams to throw the ball 40 to 50 times every week, but that might just have to be the recipe until they can get that ground game sorted out. And, we saw Odunze lead the Bears in snaps, lead the Bears in targets, lead the Bears in routes run last week against Indianapolis, besting DJ Moore in all of those categories. I'm fine starting Rome Odunze this week. I like Khalil Shakir as well for the Buffalo Bills. Big matchup for them on the road at Baltimore. I think he's a nice flex play this week. Bills have had 2 straight weird games, where they blew out the Dolphins and they blow out the Jaguars even more dramatically in week 3. They're still kind of sorting through that wide receiver room, but Shakir led them in targets against Jacksonville despite playing fewer snaps than both Marquez Valdes-Scantling and Mac Hollins. Really, really good matchup for Khalil Shakir, I think, against that Baltimore defense that has not been good against the pass. And then one running back that I like, guys, I'm going back to the well on Chuba Hubbard. I have a league where I have Hubbard, Charbonnet, and David Montgomery. And I think I'm leaning Chuba Hubbard of those 3. I do think there's a chance that we see, kind of a come down for the Panthers. Andy Dalton's probably not throwing for 300 and 3 touchdowns again. But this Cincinnati defense is a disaster. Disaster. Did not get a single stop last week against Washington. They have 2 interior linemen injured on that defense. It's just a really good spot, I think, for Chuba Hubbard in PPR leagues, especially because even if he's stifled a little bit on the ground, I think he could give you 5 or 6 catches.
I like that Chuba Hubbard pick a lot, especially going against a defensive line with Sam Hubbard and Trey Hendrickson. But missing those defensive tackles, they are just getting gashed up the middle. We saw the Patriots do it. We saw the Commanders do it. And to go back real quick on your Juwan Jennings pick, again, as a Brandon Ayuk owner, I love that start. I love that matchup because covering the Patriots the last 2 weeks, we saw JSN gash his secondary. Go to the New York Jets. Garrett Wilson was fly-papered by Christian Gonzalez, but there was a constant target by Aaron Jones on the smaller cornerback and Jonathan Jones. Juwan Jennings at 6'2" will take full advantage of that. What about your sits for the week, Nick? Who are some guys you're saying, I'm going to have them on my bench? I would explore other options.
Well, first of all, I'm just avoiding the Bears and I'm avoiding the Raiders when it comes to running backs. The DeAndre Swift experiment, it might be over. He has more runs of 0 or negative yards this year than he does for 5 or more yards. And, I think part of it is the Bears offensive line, but part of it is just DeAndre Swift not seeing things well. I would not start DeAndre Swift this week, even in what should be a good matchup against the Rams. Again, I want no part of that Raiders backfield either. And, frankly, I'm not really sure I'm comfortable rolling out Rico Dowdle or Ezekiel Elliott right now, even in what should, again, be a decent matchup tonight against the New York Giants. At the wide receiver position, I think we have a few semi-obvious names, but guys who you drafted in maybe as high as the 2nd round, oftentimes 3rd round. Michael Pittman is the first one who comes to mind. We talked about Anthony Richardson and his struggles for the Colts. Well, it's impacting Michael Pittman more than anybody. He's still seeing a high target share. He's being targeted about 30% of the time by Anthony Richardson, which is great. I mean, that's in the top 6 in the NFL. But the Colts are such a low-volume team, and these are low-quality targets for Michael Pittman as well. I mean, he's caught at least 3 passes in each of the first 3 games, but he's yet to put up more than 36 yards in any of those games. He doesn't have a single catch that has gone for more than 20 yards. And this Colts team has been able to generate a handful of big plays per game, but they're not ending up in the hands of Michael Pittman. It's been Ashton Dulin. It's been Alec Pierce. He absolutely needs volume. I mean, this time last year, Pittman already had 25 catches through 3 games. And that was mostly with Anthony Richardson before he got hurt. So more than anything, Pittman needs Richardson to get settled in. He's dead last in the NFL in completion percentage. As you mentioned, he's thrown a league high 6 interceptions. No other quarterback has even thrown 5 He's only ahead of Bryce Young in terms of QB rating. He's 25th in total pass attempts. Again, Michael Pittman needs that volume, and that volume has not been there. So I'm sitting him if I can afford it this week. And I think you have to sit Jaylen Waddle as well. If you have another decent receiver or even a running back that you could throw into that flex, I'm totally comfortable sitting Waddle against Tennessee. We got a really low total in this game. We have no idea who's even going to be the quarterback right now for the Miami Dolphins. I mean, if it's Tyler Huntley, maybe that opens things up for Devon Achane. Mike McDaniel's never really had a running quarterback. I'm excited to see what he could do with Huntley, but I don't think that really helps Jaylen Waddle at all. I mean, he's averaging only about 4 catches for about 50 yards per game with no touchdowns in his last 7 games without Tua Tagovailoa. And honestly, those numbers are better than I would have guessed. So I'm kind of avoiding this Miami offense for the time being. They've only made 8 trips to the red zone all year, and they've only scored a touchdown on 2 of those. There's just not a lot of upside right now for Jaylen Waddle.
Yeah, I like that pick a lot, especially in offense. And Mike McDaniels, as you point out, it's all predicated about timing. It's about, hey, the open receiver is going to be here, get it there out quick. They just signed a guy off the street that they might start, and it's going to take some time for that chemistry to settle in. Yeah. You brought up a lot of quarterbacks. This, to me, is one of the most fascinating starts to a season we've seen. Sam Darnold, for the past 3 weeks. You brought up what we just saw from Andy Dalton, Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Jayden Daniels. When I'm looking at a guy like Sam Darnold, is that an owner that picked him up on waivers or picked him up in free agency, should feel comfortable with starting week to week because he can have that floor of a top 12 quarterback? And maybe if they have a guy like Kyler or Jordan Love and they have a hole in the roster, trade those studs and fill out your roster and your fantasy football team better.
I think this is the tipping point week for Sam Darnold. And he's the QB4 on the year so far. Yeah. So if you've been starting him, you've been getting your return. No problem there at all. But if Sam Darnold goes into Lambeau Field on Sunday, leads the Vikings to a win, throws for, 250 yards and 2 or 3 touchdowns, I think at that point we have to buy in, right? I mean, he's done it already against 2 really good teams over the last 2 weeks. I think you look at that Giants game in week 1, and you're like, all right, it's the Giants. Maybe we throw that out. Well, then he turns around and has another really good game against San Francisco. He's even better against a really good Houston team in week 3. So I think if he does this again against Green Bay, we have no choice but to buy in. The Vikings would be 4-0 at that point. I mean, you have to consider Sam Darnold has built up a lot of bad will over the years. We've seen him play very poorly for a very long time. So there needs to be a sample here of repetitive good games. But if he could do this against the Green Bay defense that leads the NFL in turnovers forced so far this season, I think I'm ready to buy in on Sam Darnold. And certainly, I mean, having Justin Jefferson, I think helps immensely, right? I mean, we were worried about Justin Jefferson coming into the year. It's like, oh man, Sam Darnold, is he going to be able to get him the ball? I think we should have been asking the opposite question of like, how much does just having the best receiver by far, in my opinion, in the NFL help Sam Darnold? And so far, the answer has been immensely. And keep in mind, I mean, this is an offense that has been missing Jordan Addison. They should get him back soon, and they'll get their best tight end, TJ Hawkinson, back later in the season as well.
Yeah, I like that you point that out, especially with Sam Darnold. Nick, I feel like something that helps him out so much, and it's underrated, they have not been behind in games much at all this season. Right. And playing opposite of such an elite defense that gets you stops, playing with Justin Jefferson, as you point out, getting a play call from Kevin O'Connell, there's no pressure on Darnold. Like, he hasn't had to play from behind. He can just go out and play football very loose. The other QBs, Geno, Baker, Jayden, that I named, what do you make of their starts, especially Jayden Daniels, which I know after that Monday night performance, it's going to open a lot of eyes. But again, that was against a really bad Cincinnati defense.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to Daniels, for fantasy purposes, I think I'm in. I mean, he gives you such a high rushing floor week to week. And, even when he's not having the game that he did on Monday night, which, by the way, I do think we're going to look back, and that'll probably be his best game of the year. I mean, you have to keep in mind through the first 2 games of the season, the Washington passing game was terrible, right? I mean, they couldn't get receivers involved whatsoever. I mean, you're very worried about Terry McLaurin going into last week. And I do think, they caught that Cincinnati defense at the right time. I mean, nobody saw the Commanders going in and putting up 38 on the road in Cincinnati. So my guess is that maybe there's a little bit of regression over these next couple of weeks, but I like Washington's schedule the rest of the way. And I think Washington has been really smart as far as picking Jayden Daniels spots to run the ball. We saw after week 1, we ran the ball 18 times or something in week 1 against Tampa Bay, and he looked pretty good doing it. But what did Dan Quinn say after the game? He comes out and he's like, we don't want that. We don't want Jayden Daniels being the complete engine of our offense running the ball, because they know what we know, and that's that he's going to get hurt at some point. And I think we've seen him pick his spots a lot more effectively. We saw them using him on those 3rd and shorts, those 4th and shorts on Monday night. And that is so tough for a team like Cincinnati to defend, when you have to worry about, that read option. You have to worry about the short passes that were so effective. And then, of course, you have to worry about Jayden Daniels just keeping the ball and running for 3 yards. I love what I've seen from Daniels. I think that confidence is only going to grow as the season goes along. So he's very startable to me in terms of fantasy. When it comes to Geno and Baker, I'm more in on Geno right now. I think he's the perfect quarterback for what they want to run with their new OC, Ryan Grubb. I mean, Geno is more than willing to operate within a system and be coached and just kind of be himself. He's not one of those quarterbacks that's going to try to do too much. He's not going to push back and try to have influence over the offense. I mean, he is the tell me where to throw it, I will put it there type of quarterback. He's got two really high level weapons in DK Metcalf and JSN. I mean, Tyler Lockett, even at his age, has looked better than I expected so far this season. You look back to that week 2 game against the Pats, monster game for Geno Smith in terms of yardage. I think Seattle still has a ways to go in terms of converting these drives into points. And I think that will get better and better as the season goes along. And then when it comes to Baker, he's really only had one good game so far this year. And that was against Washington, which, as we said, is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. I thought he looked bad last week against Denver. Took 7 sacks against a defense that really hasn't been that good this season. He's still trying to do too much. I mean, he's a solid starting quarterback in the NFL, but I think the ceiling that we saw from Tampa Bay last season, which was winning a wild card game and losing in the divisional round, that's kind of the ceiling that you sign up for with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, and if you look at Baker, you said 7 sacks against the Broncos week before they beat those Lions. An interesting win. He was sacked 5 times that season. We're seeing the drop-off of no Dave Canales in Tampa and Liam Cohen coming into Tampa Bay now, but figuring out how to have play-calling duties himself.
Right. Well,
Nick,
and no running game either for the Buccaneers. Sorry to interrupt, but they have no running game, and that's really, really tough. That's a lot of pressure on a quarterback week to week when you can't run the ball.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Hey, what do we make of tight ends, Nick? I mean, it's Brock Bowers or bust around the league. Like, what do we do with Mark Andrews not recording a catch first time in 76 games? Travis Kelce, I don't know. And then we just see other guys that had a lot of hype throughout the league. Just nothing's happening. What do you make of the tight ends as we're seeing Cole Kmet start to emerge and even seeing guys like Sam Laporta get banged up?
Well, I mean, injuries are a big part of the story here. It's not only Laporta. Trey McBride is in concussion protocol. Yeah. We'll see if he ends up getting cleared this week. David Njoku, who's a top 10 tight end, he's been injured. Evan Ingram in Jacksonville's been out. So it's a combination of concern for the guys who've been healthy, and then half of the top 10 tight ends in fantasy being injured so far this season, and that's what leads to Dallas Goedert and Cole Kmet, leading you in fantasy points last week. I will say, someone like George Kittle, who played really well, I thought in week 2, got banged up last week. If he's out there against the Pats, I think this could be a smash week for him. We saw Tyler Conklin get really involved for that Jets offense against New England last week. I think if Trey McBride ends up being cleared, this could be a really good spot for him and that entire Cardinals offense really going up against Washington. That's the highest total of the week. I think that could easily be a game that's played in the high 20s or the low 30s. You mentioned Brock Bowers. Love what I'm seeing from him. I mean, I think if you were doing a fantasy draft starting right now and you're throwing out the stats from the first 3 weeks and just drafting as if the season starts in week 4, Brock Bowers is probably a top 3 tight end, and he might be the first tight end off the board. I think Vegas is going to be playing from behind a ton. This is another team that can't run the ball whatsoever. I think that hurts them in a real life perspective, but I think it really helps this passing game and it helps Brock Bowers in fantasy. And you mentioned Cole Kmet. I mean, suddenly he's back in the mix. I mean, I have some leagues where people were spending 20, 25% of their free agent budget just to get Cole Kmet, who, coming into the year, we thought he might be splitting snaps with Gerald Everett. And that was the case early on, but he outsnapped Gerald Everett 73-30 last week, ran 40 routes compared to 16 for Everett, had 11 targets in that game. Probably can't count on that volume week to week. I mean, the Bears ran like 85 plays last week. That's not going to be the case every week, but I think Cole Kmet is very startable this week against the Rams.
I love that pick. For the people that picked Brock Bowers in the 10th round or later, Nick, they're loving everything you just said. He's Nick Whalen, senior analyst for RotoWire. Also catch him on SiriusXM Fantasy Football and SiriusXM NBA. Nick, I know that season's around the corner. I always love you coming on and talking fantasy football. Thanks so much, my man.
Anytime, guys. Thanks for having me.
All right, Natalie, we got to talk about the Shohei Ohtani 50-50 ball situation. So, quick report we saw. The opening bid on eBay is $500,000 for the baseball. Prospective buyers will have a chance to purchase a baseball outright for $4.5 million exclusively between September 27th to October 9th. If bidding reaches $3 million prior to October 9th, Natalie, the option to purchase it privately will no longer be available. Interested parties must compete and bid for the baseball. I love this. Like, shout out to the guy that caught it holding on to it, because That like take it to bid, and I think it's brilliant. Of if it reaches this point before October 9th, it goes public, because who knows? There's some billionaire out in Saudi Arabia that wants it just to have it. That could drive this thing up to $5 million. So it's interesting. But what steps in, Natalie? A fan is suing to stop the auction of his 50th home run ball because he said he caught it first. The attorneys for Max Mattis say he grabbed the ball before it was taken from him. Let's roll the video. If you're watching on YouTube, we have it right here. You see the baseball coming in. You see the reaction of people. The mayhem ensues. Like right now, Natalie, anytime there's a home run anywhere, let alone a 50-50 ball, ricochets, misses guy's hand. Watch the kid in the red jersey reaches in with his left arm. I think right here, he has the ball. And then as he eases up, you see this guy squeezing his legs between his hand, trying to get possession of it, which is the most awkward situation to be in. And the guy in the black shirt pulls up with it. And you see how upset he is.
But this is the best part. This is the best part. The guy with the black shirt turns around and he high-fives the kid who's visibly upset. Ready? Right there.
He's like, give me the ball, and he daps him up. Look, they're saying, the attorneys are saying it was taken from him as a result of civil battery. For those that aren't lawyers like me, that means someone intentionally and unlawfully touches or harms another person without their consent. I don't think harm was made here. Yeah, he's touching them. Look, I get it. Hey, if you got it, you could play this card and it works. Good for you. But dude, possession is 9/10 of the law. Like, I would not let up there. I'm not, if I'm caught like that, it's in the most awkward situation too. His hand's in the guy's crotch. Like, this is weird.
Right.
I'm going in with my right hand. I don't care. Jaws of life need to separate my hands from this ball. I am not letting it go. So to that point, hey, good bit on the ball, Max. Shout out to you. Shout out to the guy in the black. That's his baseball, in my opinion. I don't blame you for filing a lawsuit, but like, that's his ball.
I totally agree with that. And like, you're gonna put this possession where people aren't gonna grab it from you, right between the legs, and that's why it's funny that you're talking about violation. He's filing against civil battery. It's like, dude, you're the one reaching in there. Anyways, I think what's so funny about this is, like, maybe you can argue me on this, but I feel like baseball memorabilia tends to be some of like the best between all sports, because I feel like you have baseball signed, and I mean, just look at the Sandlot. You remember that room in the house with the Great Bambino, whatever the heck. It was just crazy. He had all this memorabilia and people go crazy for it. So to see these people fighting and like throwing their bodies around, throwing chairs around, some guy almost looked like he broke his freaking arm over it. Like, I would do the same.
That ball, like, you know what the value of that ball is. Mark McGwire's 70th home run auctioned off, I think, $3.5 million, and then it found out it was juicing, it lost its value. But this ball is now going between $3 and $4.5 million, and this lawsuit's asking either the ball or the proceeds be held until ownership of this baseball has been determined. It goes to the guy in the black. And exactly to your point, like, Max, better effort, bro. You got to do more next time. And for that guy, like, for him to get creative, squeeze the legs, put his hand in there, and hold on for dear life. When I watched that video, for him to hold it up in like the glory way and the guy in the collared shirt tried to snatch it from him, that's when I was like, bro, if I had that, I have my phone. If I have that, I'm putting it right here in my chest. I'm not talking to anyone. I'm finding the nearest exit. I'm going to keep walking. And until I'm in my car, doors locked, driving, on the phone with my lawyer, am I letting go? Like, that's what I would have done. So...
Hell no. And that's the thing. Like, my mom upstairs, I'm not going to tell you where I live, but she's got a Ted Williams signed baseball underneath, just like piles of clothes. And like, she's not even the biggest baseball fan, but the fact that she treasures this thing the way she does, it just speaks to baseball memorabilia, the value of it, how people know how important it is. But yeah, that's so crazy. That's such a funny video to watch.
The opening bid's going $500K. Apparently, the Dodgers offered $300,000, which makes sense. They're going to undersell, but they haven't even commented on that. I just thought we were like talking about it. Take your favorite baseball player of all time. They hit a home run. Say it's record-setting. Would you hold on to it or would you sell it?
I would hold on to it and give it to the next generation, like my kids or something, and then whatever they want to do with it, it's out of my hands.
Look, everyone knows. Look, I grew up in Jersey. I'm a Yankees fan. If I caught Derek Jeter's 3,000th hit, which was a home run, that was back in the day. Yeah, that age, George, he probably gives it to Jeter. Ask for some season tickets, a picture, all that. Maybe like lunch with him. If I catch that ball now, I'm doing this. I'm holding on to it. I'm auctioning it off. If it's six figures, it's 6 figures. I'm selling. I do not care. 6 figures. It's a baseball. I know. I love sports. Trust me. I love sports. but I cannot comprehend the people that spend thousands of dollars on sneakers because they're limited edition, the people that spend millions on baseballs. But if they want to, I'll gladly take their hard-earned money. I gladly would.
Well, I'm sentimental and you're the businessman. So at least we've got two contrasting opinions there. I'd hold on to it, give it to my loved ones. They can sell it later if they want.
There you go. See, it's just different ways of generational wealth. Hey, she's Natalie Noury. I'm George Balekji in the PNC Bank studio. This was Boston has entered the chat. Wherever you get your podcast, Spotify, Apple, Amazon Prime, please like, subscribe, download, rate, and review. If you're watching on Nesson's YouTube, hit the subscribe button as well. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week. Enjoy your weekend.